You ever look at someone and think you know their story? You see them on screen, on red carpets, in interviews radiant, composed, seemingly untouchable, and you assume you understand their life. You assume the smiles are real, the love is effortless, the happiness permanent. You assume the story is finished, complete, and perfect. That's exactly how millions of people have felt about Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban, a Hollywood goddess, a global music superstar. Two icons from different worlds coming together in what looked like a modern fairy tale. They were labeled perfect, uncheckable, untouchable, but sometimes the perfect story is only the one everyone sees. And behind that polished image, behind the carefully curated public moments, lie truths that don't fit neatly into headlines. Truths shaped by pressure, growth, silence, and the reality of living under constant observation. Nicole Kidman has lived most of her life in the public eye. Her career, her relationships, her choices documented, analyzed, debated. She's been praised, criticized, idolized, and misunderstood. Fame followed her everywhere, and with it came expectations that no human being could realistically live up to. Yet despite that exposure, Nicole has always protected something fiercely her inner world. She rarely rushes to correct rumors. She avoids public confessions. She understands that in a world obsessed with narratives, words can be twisted into something unrecognizable. Silence, for her, has often been a form of control, not avoidance. When Keith Urban entered her life, the public immediately created a story. Two successful, attractive, talented people falling in love. The timing felt perfect. The chemistry looked genuine. Their appearances together radiated warmth and stability. Fans embraced them as proof that real love could survive fame. Hollywood celebrated them as balanced glamour meeting grounded authenticity. But what the world saw was only a fragment. Behind the red carpets and interviews existed the daily reality of two people navigating demanding careers. Constant travel, intense schedules, and the invisible pressure of being watched at all times. Every smile scrutinized, every comment dissected, every quiet moment turned into speculation. Nicole has spoken over the years about how relentless that pressure can be, about how fame doesn't pause when you're tired, emotional, or overwhelmed, about how relationships lived publicly don't get the luxury of privacy when things feel complicated. She has acknowledged that even the strongest relationships are tested under those conditions. Over time, subtle shifts caught the attention of fans. Interviews that felt more reflective than romantic. Conversations about marriage that emphasized work, patience, and effort rather than fantasy. Moments where Nicole spoke candidly about how hard it can be to maintain emotional connection while constantly giving pieces of yourself to the world. To casual observers, these were meaningless details. But to those paying attention, they revealed something honest. Something real. Nicole wasn't selling a fantasy. She was describing reality. She has talked about personal growth, how people evolve as individuals, how priorities change, how emotional needs shift with time, how love isn't static and neither are the people inside it. She's been clear that long-term relationships require ongoing alignment, communication, and vulnerability. That love alone doesn't automatically solve every challenge. That choosing each other is something that happens again and again, not just once. These reflections weren't admissions of failure. They were acknowledgments of complexity. And that's what made them powerful. Because celebrity culture thrives on extremes, perfect love, or dramatic collapse, there's rarely space for nuance. Rarely room for stories that exist in the middle, where love and difficulty coexist. Nicole's words quietly challenged that. She spoke about loneliness, not the absence of love, but the kind that comes from being emotionally stretched thin. From juggling career demands, family responsibilities, and public expectations all at once. From living in a world where vulnerability is often treated as weakness. She described moments of doubt, not about love itself, but about balance. About how to remain present when life pulls you in different directions. About how fame magnifies normal relationship struggles into something heavier. Keith Urban, too, has spoken openly about growth, accountability, and emotional responsibility. He has acknowledged that maintaining a healthy relationship requires honesty, humility, and constant effort. That love is not passive, it's practiced. Together, their words paint a picture far more realistic than the fairy tale many imagined. Not perfect, not effortless, but intentional. Still, silence invites interpretation. Social media thrives on speculation. Fans look for hidden meanings. Tabloids create narratives where none are confirmed. Every quiet phase becomes a theory. Every reflective comment becomes assumed trouble. Nicole understands this better than most. She has said that sometimes the most courageous choice is not explaining yourself. That protecting what matters means resisting the urge to perform your personal life for public consumption. And yet, she hasn't remained completely silent. Through thoughtful interviews and reflections, she has shared lessons rather than details, insights rather than confessions, wisdom earned through experience. She speaks about resilience, about self-awareness, about choosing growth even when it's uncomfortable. She emphasizes that relationships aren't measured by appearances, but by the work done behind closed doors. That longevity doesn't mean perfection. That strength doesn't mean absence of struggle. Perhaps the most striking thing about Nicole's reflections is the absence of blame. She doesn't point fingers. She doesn't frame herself as a victim, or anyone else as a villain. Instead, she presents relationships as living, evolving connections shaped by time, choice, and circumstance. This perspective resonates deeply because it mirrors real life. Most relationships don't end because of one dramatic moment. They're shaped by accumulated experiences, changing priorities, and personal growth. They require adjustment, sometimes reinvention, sometimes acceptance. Nicole's honesty invites audiences to see celebrity relationships through a more compassionate lens, to recognize that public visibility doesn't make someone immune to doubt, exhaustion, or emotional complexity. As reactions to her reflections spread online, many fans expressed something unexpected, not disappointment but understanding. People related to the idea that love can be real and still be hard. That commitment doesn't erase individuality. That growth can challenge even strong bonds. Discussions shifted away from gossip and toward emotional intelligence, toward the reality of long-term partnerships, toward the pressure of maintaining connection in a world that constantly demands performance. Nicole's story, as she allows it to be seen, becomes less about celebrity and more about humanity. She continues to focus on her work, her family, and her personal evolution. She chooses to define herself on her own terms, not through assumptions or projections. She understands that reclaiming one's narrative doesn't always mean speaking louder, sometimes means speaking wiser. And that, perhaps, is the lesson that lingers longest. Because this isn't a story about scandal. It isn't about gossip. It isn't about a dramatic ending. It's about the reality behind appearances. It's about the courage to live authentically in a world that constantly watches. About understanding that silence doesn't mean deception. That reflection doesn't mean regret. That growth doesn't mean failure. Nicole Kidman's reflections remind us that vulnerability is strength. That honesty doesn't need spectacle. That love can exist alongside struggle without being diminished by it. They remind us that behind every red carpet smile is a real person navigating choices, emotions, and responsibilities just like everyone else, only under a much brighter spotlight. So the next time we see a celebrity couple on a magazine cover, or scrolling through a perfectly curated post, let the story be a reminder. Appearances are curated. Silence is often protective, and real life is always more layered than we assume. Because at the heart of it all, this isn't about fame or fortune. It's about the timeless human experience, loving, growing, questioning, choosing, and trying to find balance in a world that rarely stops watching. And sometimes the most powerful truth isn't shouted. It's lived quietly.